Ciao. First, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry if my English is so bad, but I brave myself to presentation my paper. Also, my signal is up and down, so if there is something trouble, I apologize for the first. And I had a little headache, so if I cannot fully concentrate with this presentation, I'm sorry. Okay. Disabled women, marginalized identities. First, I want to talk why I use disabled and not disabled. Okay. There is difference between disabled and disabled. Disabled. First, I want to talk about disabled. Disabled connotes negative because it has a negative connotation, namely disability, which means incompetence or lack of ability. Disable, it means disability. So I repeat again, means incompetence or lack of ability. It's different with disabled. Disabled have connotes positive because it has a positive connotation. Disabled from different ability, which means different ability. So I don't know, but a lot of literature still use disabled, but not disabled. So some countries with the social movements use the term disabled. Even in Indonesia has become an object word, serapan, kata serapan, that is difabel. Difabel, kata serapan in Indonesia become difabel. Difabel, yes, difabel, different ability. That's why I use difabel and not disable. Then, okay. Difabel women. Why women? And then difabel. Okay. In patriarchy, we also know woman is a second sex and a man is the first sex. Seems like Simone Beauvoir. Yes, Simone Beauvoir said woman is a second sex and man as a first sex. So, because woman is a second sex, the implication is oppression and subordination to women. What about disabled women? If women have the oppression and subordination, what about disabled women? I think the disabled women double subordination and double marginalized. So not only oppression, not only subordination, not only marginalized, but double. As a woman, also as a disabled woman. So my paper talk about identity of women with disabilities who often get negative stigma to experience double marginalized, not only as women but also as women with disabilities. I'm sorry, I use disabilities because the translate ketika saya mentranslate tidak bisa menjadi disable. Sebetulnya itu salah satu hal yang memarginaliskan disabled women tadi, gitu ya. Bahkan di translation sendiri tidak ada kata disabled itu. The theories is from Matt and Goffman. Math about self. Math states about two aspects of the self, namely I and me. I is an individual's direct response to another individual and cannot be estimated and simply appears. This is related to the response is in an interaction, like symbolic interaction. The response can be precise, but it can also be mistaken because it relates to the nature of the response that arises without being calculated. So, individuals are often unable to recognize I. Unable to recognize I. Often I is also called self-realization. And how about me? It is different between I and me. Me is an organized and conscious form of self. In the process of interaction, especially symbolic interaction, me is based on conformity. The dominance over the individual is in the me, and social control is in me. And the second theory is Erving Goffman about identity and stigma. Goffman, in his thinking, proposed the concept of identity, namely personal identity and self-identity. Personal identity is usually more in framing the individual experience. Okay, I highlight the individual's experience by others and not by individual himself. Okay. I guess this is important. Okay. Personal identity is usually more in framing the individual's experience by others and not by the individual himself or herself. Self-identity is a person's subjective feeling of the situation he or she is experiencing and his or her own continuity and character, separate from personal identity. The self-identity of individuals can be said to be close relation to various social experience that they experience. Stigma. What about stigma? First, wait for a second. Hold on. About stigma. For the stigma. Okay. Okay. Goffman divides stigma into three types. First, hatred of the body. The form of body abnormalities or physical disabilities. Means this research or this paper according to the first stigma. The second stigma, people who are rejected because of their personality are considered sick or have disorders where they are not respected. For example, people who have mental disorder, inmates, drug dependents, alcoholics, homosexual, unemployed people, well, people who attempt suicide, and people who behave politically radically. The third stigma is stigma imposed on the basis of tribal, racial, national, and religious. In addition to this three concepts of stigma, government also divides stigma based on stigmatization or knowledge of others over the stigma that one has. Among others, first, stigma discredit, namely deficiencies or differences owned by someone known by others. For example, physical disabilities that can be seen visually. Okay, physical disability can seen visually. The second, discreditable stigma. It means deficiencies or differences that one has are not known by others because they are invisible. For example, homosexual, invisible. Okay. That's the theories, Matt and Goffman.
Yes, excuse me, Mrs. Fari, you still have 4 minutes to go. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Anda. Okay, the data collection and discussion. Identity of self, use Herbert Map, I and me. In some informants, they state that often in interacting, they are treated as objects, not as subject. Okay, treated as objects and not as subject. The object here means that these women are in subordinate position, especially when these interactions involve men. Regarding their deformed physical condition, it seems to legitimize this women's position as an object. Okay. Because you are disabled, so you are an object. For example, when they interact with others who are not disabled, they tend to suppress that, well, they actually feel that they can only accept what is stigmatized to them. For example, there is sentence, you will not be able to, so you should not need it. Okay. Kamu tidak akan mampu, jadi kamu nggak usah. Like that. It's example, the sentence that according to women with disability or disabled women. Okay. Stigma and that. Disabled women often get stigmatized by society that they are women-less individuals and do not have a good future. Do not have a good future. The issue of women's domestication related to the burden of taking care of the house or other household chores becomes an increasingly complex problem for women with disability. Because of their disability, they cannot to do taking care of the house or other household, and they do not have a good future. And in a society, an individual or person with a disability will confuse minor position or subordinate, not only in terms of number, but also in terms of ugliness and deficiency, will certainly be in a difficult situation. They must live within the rules made for a side with normal people as the dominant group. Normal people as the dominant group. And so, and then marginalized also occurs in the public domain. Okay? Job option become more limited, especially if a company or office does not have a principled policy accommodating people with disability. In addition, another obstacle is the assumption that the existence of disabled people who work will lower the company's image. Is still there. This is because people with disability are still considered disgrace or even seen as unlucky careers. Also in education. The conclusion, one second. The stigma about disability causes society to also view people with disabilities as weak, helpless, unable to do anything, have no job, no hope, as people who should be treated as people who are lacking, incomplete, and not perfect creators. The negative stigma is also attached to people with disabilities, sometimes even forcing people with disabilities to become as perceived by society. And what about women? Disabled women or disabled women are becoming increasingly subordinated. Traditional and patriarchal views on women demand that women meet the criteria of perfect women in society. But when women are disabled, the position of subordination turns into highly subordination. Disabled women are increasingly being compressed, not only by society, even from their own family, and also from another normal women. That's all. Thank you, Ms. Anif.
Thank you, Miss Farinia. Yeah, Miss Nia. Okay. I don't know. Being a woman, I think is very hard. From your
I'm sorry,
presentation,
I have a little headache.
That's okay.
So
That's okay.
That's
okay. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. I open the Q&A question. Is there any question or comment or any feedback for Miss Nia? It's very good presentation, I think. Being a woman, we have to face a challenge by two subordination because we are women, and the second one because we are disabled. Okay, I think that's the presentation present by Miss Nia. Okay, any question?
Or maybe with the
Comment? Okay, maybe I want to ask you a question, Miss Nia. Could you please give us like a real example or a case and how women, disabled women experience with stigmatization? A real example. Just want to know about that. Yes.
In my full paper, wait, saya cari dulu di full paper ya ada. Sorry, marginalized or
any just real example for us, maybe in social media, or it's like cyberbullying, or in the community development practices, or any kind of stigmatization or marginalization.
I'm looking for my full paper so I can case stigma. Okay, where is it? Sorry. Mungkin lebih mudah saya jelas pakai bahasa saja ya. Contoh yang penelitian yang pernah saya lakukan gitu, misalnya pada perempuan ini ada banyak sebetulnya contoh real ya yang mereka alami. Bahkan ada yang sampai mengalami sexual harassment. Tapi yang mau saya ambil di sini seperti tadi ketika ada ketakutan dari mereka untuk menikah. Pada perempuan yang disabled ini, mereka ketakutan untuk menikah, takut untuk menghadapi masa depan. Untuk beberapa kasus terjadi seperti itu. Pertama, karena by their own family gitu ya, oleh keluarga mereka sendiri, mereka semacam distigma bahwa mereka itu tadi adalah orang-orang yang tidak punya harapan gitu ya, jobless and hopeless. Bahkan ketika mereka masih kecil pun mereka disembunyikan oleh keluarga mereka sehingga karena dianggap aib tadi. Aib.
So sad. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Miss Fari. There is a question from Miss Hamim, but I think we have to move to another presenter. I keep your question, Miss Hamim, and Mr. Hamim, and I will read later after the closing time. Okay, we are moving to second presenter. Let me check. And Miss. Sorry. Yeah.
Atau saya jawab
Miss Ira Adriati. Okay, yes, that would be brilliant. Okay. Would be good idea. Yes, you can comment in the. Yeah, yes. Okay.
Thank you,
Miss Ira. Yes. You okay? You're here now. Okay. You can start. Yes, you can start your presentation. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will present about our paper. This is paper Air write with Mrs. Alvin Gunawan, art as therapy to maintain the mental health of refugees during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is origin country and number of refugees and distribution of refugees location in Jakarta 2002, and I will highlight in Pekanbaru 908. This is about refugee. The condition of refugees is very worrying because they don't have clarity when they can get a country when to stay. Background, the COVID-19 pandemic causes mental stress for the community. The situation is overwhelmed by refugees who are under the International Organization for Migration, IOM, in Pekanbaru. One of the activities that can maintain mental health is art. IOM Pekanbaru held art as therapy activities throughout July until August 2021. The purpose of this study was to determine the benefits of art as therapy to improve the mental health of the refugees. The first used art, the theory of the function of art from Edmund Burke Feldman, as a medium to express psychological problems. Kellen Flanagan described about art therapy is an approach that involves the creative process of art to improve one's life. When we engage in the creation of our own art form, we receive big benefits to our mind, both physically and mentally. When we produce art with our own hands, there is increased neural connectivity in the area of the brain that deals with introspection, memory, and self-monitoring. This encourages most patients to play with art media, even if their products are not immediately fulfilling, almost always relax them. To be able to reduce tension without using more potentially threatening techniques like relaxation or hypnosis is extremely valuable. After all, the more comfortable people are, the more easily they can communicate with you in words, the usual coin of psychotherapy. These are our activities. Art as therapy activities were carried out 4 times. In the first meeting, the instructor explained about art as therapy and its purpose. In the second to fourth meeting, participants made painting using acrylic paint and tell the meaning of the painting made. Through interviews, it can be seen if participants express their anxiety, fear, anger, and hopes through the painting medium. This is documentation of the activity. And we will describe about artwork of the refugees. Following are artwork of the refugees from the art as therapy activities, adult refugees and children refugees. This is example of artwork by adult refugees. Hassan, he drew with abstract style, somber color. This is a blue color indicating courage. And this is arty, the use of light gradation, monochrome, shows solemnity. The male figure in the middle seems to be in at the helping hand from around whether they offer good or evil. This image is full of symbolic meaning. And Abu draw birds as subject matter as symbol of peace. Birds in a cage can indicate confinement. The situation is not free. The color around the cage on the right side looks dark, but on the left side, the yellow and green colors indicate spirit, optimistic outlook on life. And Asif Kasimi, he drew the face of a man with a cold expression between annoyance and trying to hold on. good human drawing skills, you can see two blue lines near the eyes, like teeth, maybe an expression of sadness. The use of bright blue on the chin to the neck shows hope. And this is Ali. Rainbow object shows hope. Red and blue colors strengthen the selections of objects. Overall, express positive outlook on life or a better life. Musa, the figure of a girl with a backpack is placed in the middle, and it's at the end of the road. The object emphasizes the situation experienced by the painter. Be at one point, the image of birds flying freely from inside the backpack is a symbol of hope for freedom and happiness. And this is example of artwork by children refugee. They choose calligraphy, choose umbrella, subject matter, flower, or sunrise, and flag. Flag for describe about their love to Indonesia and Afghanistan. And our conclusion, after expressing their emotions and thoughts in the form of painting, they said they were more relieved and able to look at life with positive thoughts. Artwork of children shows happiness. It can be seen from the subject matter and color. It means that as children, they still not aware the hardness of art as therapy should be more frequently carried out to decrease the depression and suicide rate. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ira. I think a nice and very on-time presentation. Okay, I'm opening a Q&A question. Is there any question or comment or feedback, any suggestion for Mr. Ira, Mrs. Ira? Okay, oh yes, Mrs. Umi, okay.
Okay, it's
Please,
really
Mrs.
nice,
Ira.
like
Yeah.
writing about like what we should like do for the refugee that is really really unlucky, you know. Is that your research in Pekanbaru?
Yes.
Okay, good. My question is
online.
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 Because I live in Pekanbaru and I know the refugee condition is really like, sorry about that. They are really like stressful and unhappy and many things. And my question is, because you like research about art in terms of like drawing, and I know that art is only drawing, but also you can write a poetry, probably writing something that they can like express how their life being a refugee for like 7 years, even like 4 years. Do you have that kind of like research about? Ada nggak risetnya tentang itu? It's only for drawing?
Ya, saya akan persilahkan Dr. Elvin ya membantu menjawab dalam riset ini. Saya berdua dengan Dr. Elvin. Please, Dr. Elvin.
Miss Umi and Miss Anif, let me answer this question for this research. Actually, for the activity with the refugees that is allowed by the IOM, we only use the painting because the program is really controlled and strict. And we have to discuss about the activities with the refugees with the International Organization of Migrants, and then if it is suitable and then they accept our program and our proposal, they allow that. So for another activities hasn't been approved by them, and then only art, because maybe for the documentation or anything, it is more acceptable for them.
Okay. Elvin, because I think I had through webinar, something like that, and even one presentation with refugee, and several of refugees who's like English are really good. they share about like their feeling, their hope that everything that is really like interesting to read or probably it can be sent to the like IOM or probably the third country that they would like to go, something like that. But I can understand it.
Yes, because some of them by doing the art therapy, they told, and then we discussed maybe they have the symptom of depression or anxiety. But when we ask about the further examination or some therapies for them, they say it will be discussed by the intern of IOM. So until now, some of them that has been indicate have a problem with the mental health issue hasn't been treated until now.
Okay, thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we still have time. One question. Is there any question? Okay. Okay. I want to ask a question. I concern on one thing. I just do the refugee have like facilities to do all of the artwork? I mean, do they have money to have to make like artwork like you present in the PowerPoint? To buy yes paper, to buy I don't know like color pen or any. Yes.
Miss Ani, for this activity, this is
Yes.
supported by the PKBI. So we are doing some fee.
Okay.
Part of our fee has been
Okay.
dedicated for this event, and then the PKBI
Okay.
help us to distribute these art therapist tools. And then it is work by doing like a collaboration, because the most things that has been hard for reaching the refugees is the regulation by the IOM. So not all the NGO can approach them. And even when doing the class with them, some of the refugees send us a direct message, but we can do more than that. Some of them complain about the situation,
of course,
or the
yes.
treatment, or some bullying or verbal or abuse in the facility. So by doing the art therapy, it is like the catharsis, emotion catharsis for them.
I know. Yes.
Yeah, and then
Yes,
maybe
good.
the time for us to meet people outside the world. Maybe
Yes,
like
yes,
that.
yes. Yeah. I'm just wondering who will provide them any paper and color pen when you stop your project. Is that what I'm wondering about?
Yeah, it is. I think it is a good pilot project that the color that has been showed in the first is very monochrome, and then in the second or third time it is more colorful.
Okay, thank you.
More than welcome.
Okay. Okay, now we are continuing to the third presentation. We will go to, let me check, Miss or Mrs. Sayuti, Jina Nabila Effendi, and Zuhri Triansyah. Okay. Could you please share your PowerPoint? No participant from this article? Okay, we skip this article and we are moving to next presenter is Anifat Mahawa and Muhammad Hisham Putra. Because I'm hosting this parallel session, I will ask Mr. Hisham to present the PowerPoint. Okay.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yuk.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will presentation our research, Anifat Mahawa and me. But today I will presentation with Bahasa because it's difficult to me to explain our research clearly with English. So I use Bahasa. Okay, first is my paper with Bu Anifat Makawa is why do preparedness and response to COVID-19 pandemic need community development approach, an experience from Indonesia. Jadi penelitian ini kami latar belakangi dari situasi pandemi yang semakin menyebar di seluruh negara di dunia. Sejak awal penyebaran virus ini mengakibatkan beberapa negara telah berlomba untuk menyusun strategi bagaimana untuk mengendalikan pandemi ini secara efektif. Namun yang terjadi adalah memang beberapa strategi yang umum digunakan di banyak negara adalah strategi makro yang mengedepankan kebijakan top-down seperti lockdown, social isolation, social distancing, dan kebijakan-kebijakan protokol kesehatan lainnya. Inilah yang kemudian lambat laun strategi-strategi ini mengalami banyak kritikan. Salah satu kritikan yang paling umum adalah bahwa pendekatan makro ini pada akhirnya dianggap telah menciptakan praktek otoritarianisme, jadi praktek otoriter bagi negara. Ini diakibatkan karena pertama, strategi makro ini dianggap sering mengakibatkan hilangnya transparansi data terhadap publik. Seluruh data dikuasai oleh negara dan beberapa negara, mungkin beberapa negara atau mungkin di Indonesia kita akan menemukan bagaimana gap-gap data antara pemerintah dan data yang diambil oleh civil society. Kemudian yang kedua, dengan dalih pandemi, banyak negara yang sebenarnya mulai berusaha mengawasi kehidupan privasi masyarakat seperti dengan pembuatan aplikasi, dia mengawasi, memantau kehidupan pribadi warganya yang sangat ketat, bagaimana mobilisasinya, dan akhirnya ini dikhawatirkan akan terjadi pengambilan data-data pribadi yang tidak dalam tanda kutip tidak disetujui secara langsung oleh warga negara itu sendiri. Dan yang ketiga yang paling umum, banyak negara yang kemudian mulai menggunakan kekuatan militer untuk melaksanakan kebijakan-kebijakannya. Inilah yang kemudian dikhawatirkan oleh WHO bahwa top-down atau makro strategi ini dalam penanganan COVID telah mengabaikan partisipasi masyarakat. Oleh karena itu, di akhir tahun 2020, WHO mulai merilis sebuah rekomendasi untuk seluruh negara di dunia bahwa untuk mulai melibatkan masyarakat dari berbagai elemen untuk menangani pandemi dengan strategi community engagement. Strategi ini sebenarnya digunakan untuk merujuk pada pola pengambilan keputusan pandemi yang mengedepankan partisipasi masyarakat dalam menangani pandemi. Ini sebenarnya diadopsi oleh WHO terhadap studinya pada beberapa tahun yang lalu terkait pengendalian endemi di Afrika terkait virus Ebola, di mana di sana para negara-negara di Afrika itu berhasil mengendalikan dengan kekuatan keterlibatan masyarakatnya secara aktif, karena masyarakat dianggap sebagai subjek yang memiliki informasi terbaik mengenai kebutuhan dan preferensi daerahnya masing-masing. Jadi di sini WHO pada akhirnya ingin mengatakan di dalam rekomendasinya bahwa tidak ada rumus tunggal dalam sebuah pengendalian pandemi, karena bagaimanapun harus disesuaikan dengan karakteristik wilayah, sosial, budaya masyarakat di negara itu sendiri. Oleh karena itu, pada akhirnya manfaat melakukan pendekatan community development ini dalam sebuah strategi pengendalian pandemi akan menciptakan ribuan inovasi atau inisiatif skala kecil yang kemudian itu menggambarkan cara-cara pengorganisasian masyarakat yang sangat berbeda. Studi ini pada akhirnya ingin melihat itu bagaimana Indonesia telah memulai mengadopsi rekomendasi WHO tersebut. Studi ini dilakukan di Malang. Dengan melihat bagaimana perubahan PPKM Mikro yang kemudian itu ternyata di dalamnya telah mengadopsi pendekatan pemberdayaan masyarakat. Oke, jika kita kembali bicara secara konseptual, sebenarnya pemberdayaan masyarakat dan pandemi ini mempunyai hubungan yang kontradiktif. Kenny menjelaskan bahwa hubungan ini dapat dilihat dari bagaimana masyarakat atau setiap negara menyikapi pandemi secara makro dan mikro. Secara makro biasanya kita akan melihat bahwa aktor sentral dari penanganan ini adalah pemerintah, ahli medis atau ekonom ataupun pejabat kesehatan. Hal ini memang sebenarnya penting karena memang dalam penanganan pandemi kita harus melihat dari kebijakan yang di tingkat makro, karena itu penting untuk mengurusi hal-hal yang terkait sifatnya makro seperti pengangguran ataupun kesehatan masyarakat ataupun kelompok-kelompok rentan, yang itu memang adalah tanggung jawab pemerintah atau negara itu sendiri. Namun yang dilupakan adalah yang sering dilupakan bahwa efektivitas di tingkat makro itu sebenarnya membutuhkan partisipasi aktif dari masyarakat di tingkat mikro, seperti komitmen anggota masyarakat di tingkat yang paling bawah, di tingkat paling kecil terkait kepatuhannya terhadap protokol kesehatan. Sehingga pada akhirnya semua inisiatif yang dilakukan oleh anggota masyarakat di tingkat mikro ini dapat berjalan secara konsisten dengan kebijakan-kebijakan yang sifatnya makro. Oleh karena itu sebenarnya di sini pendekatan community development dalam pengendalian pandemi sebenarnya ingin mengedepankan berbagai definisi pengembangan masyarakat yang sebenarnya berbicara bahwa masyarakat harus dilibatkan dalam setiap pengambilan keputusan, karena ini memegang asumsi bahwa anggota masyarakat itu berada posisi yang paling baik untuk dan memiliki pengetahuan yang tepat terkait kondisi mereka sendiri. Oleh karena itu menjadi penting ya kemudian untuk melibatkan partisipasi masyarakat ini. Studi ini kami lakukan di Malang terkait kebijakan PPKM Mikro. Kami memilih Malang karena memang pertama Malang adalah salah satu subjek kota yang sebagai subjek kebijakan PPKM Mikro. Yang kedua, Malang sebagai kota turisme yang di mana mobilitasnya sangat amat padat, juga berpotensi sebagai kota yang dapat menimbulkan klaster baru. Dan yang ketiga, yang terpenting adalah memang Malang ini sempat masuk dalam asumsi kita dan juga di bawah berita masuk dalam kota yang sangat bagus untuk dalam penanganan pandemi. Hasil penelitian kita sebenarnya ingin menunjukkan bahwa PPKM Mikro dalam kebijakan PPKM Mikro ini ada sebuah perubahan yang sangat mendasar dalam kebijakan pemerintah dari kebijakan-kebijakan sebelumnya. Perubahan mendasar ini adalah pemberian ruang terhadap masyarakat di tingkat paling bawah untuk ikut andil dalam penanganan. Di undang-undang, di peraturan tersebut, di peraturan PPKM Mikro tersebut dengan jelas menyebutkan bahwa penting untuk melibatkan RT RW ataupun tokoh-tokoh masyarakat di paling bawah, apapun itu termasuk Karang Taruna, PKK dan lain-lain ikut andil. Yang terjadi akhirnya adalah perubahan yang terjadi adalah berubahnya sistem zonasi. Ini perubahan pertama yang menjadi titik penting dalam penelitian kami. Kami melihat bahwa perubahan zonasi ini yang kemudian diadopsi hingga di tingkat RT sangat amat efektif terkait bagaimana masyarakat pada akhirnya bagaimana masyarakat ini menginformasikan jumlah case di lingkungan mereka. Seperti di Malang misalnya, inovasinya adalah menggunakan bendera. Kita akan melihat, gambarnya nggak muncul. Mungkin nanti saya. Jadi di Malang ada inovasi yang namanya menggunakan bendera, di mana bendera ditaruh di depan gang berdasarkan warna hijau, kuning, orange, dan merah. Yang itu menandakan masing-masing menandakan jumlah kasus di lingkungan RT itu dan bagaimana situasi darurat di lingkungan RT itu di setiap gang. Ini menjadi penting ya, karena di sini ada sebuah pembendaharaan tanda yang itu sangat amat mudah diterima oleh masyarakat. Masyarakat yang sebelumnya tidak mengetahui terkait jumlah kasus di lingkungan mereka, karena ketika dia ingin mengetahui dia harus mengecek informasi di berita dan lain-lain, mereka tidak lagi melakukan itu, tapi hanya perlu melihat bendera-bendera ini. Karena kita harus akui bahwa tidak semua orang punya waktu untuk mengakses informasi berita. Misalnya tukang sayur tidak mungkin setiap hari untuk mengecek apakah tempat-tempat dia jualan itu zonasinya merah atau hijau. Sejak ada PPKM Mikro dan malah menggunakan sebuah penandaan ini, pada akhirnya masyarakat yang paling bawah dapat mengerti dan mendapat informasi yang sangat akurat terkait lingkungan-lingkungan yang itu rawan baginya untuk bekerja, rawan didatangi ataupun tidak. Jadi seperti itu. Ini yang pertama. Dan kemudian yang kedua adalah adanya posko, pendirian posko. Posko ini menjadi salah satu kebijakan yang sangat amat digunakan dengan pendekatan community development ya, karena ternyata dalam posko ini memberi ruang bagi masyarakat untuk kembali menguatkan solidaritas sosialnya satu sama lain. Di dalam posko di tingkat RT ini, masyarakat
Time is up, Mas. Yeah, could you please faster, faster? Yeah.
Oke, intinya di posko ini masyarakat diberi 3 tanggung jawab. Yang pertama terkait dengan kesehatan, kemudian terkait dengan ekonomi sosialnya, dan hingga ke memastikan masyarakat lainnya tidak mengalami gangguan psikologis terkait situasi tersebut. Jadi kesimpulan dalam studi ini sebenarnya, studi ini menunjukkan bahwa PPKM Mikro telah mengadopsi dengan baik pendekatan pemberdayaan masyarakat, dan yang terpenting adalah studi ini berhasil menunjukkan bahwa keterlibatan partisipasi masyarakat benar-benar sangat efektif untuk mengendalikan pandemi itu sendiri. Mungkin terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam. Okay, thank you. I think the end of presentation of Mr. Hisam. Okay, I give the presenter to give feedback to Mr. Hisam with the questions, suggestion, or any kind of feedback or comment. No question? No suggestion? Oh, this is because both
Bu
I'm
Anis,
hosting.
saya
Yes,
boleh
yes,
bertanya
of course.
in bahasa saja ya.
Of
Iya, ya, nggak
course,
apa.
it's fine. It's fine.
Pak Hisham, tadi saya tertarik dengan red flag tadi ya, bendera merah. Berarti di setiap lokal tertentu dipasang begitu ya benderanya ya?
Iya, ya, dipasang.
Sebagai penanda bahwa daerah tersebut ada di zona mana.
Iya, iya. Jadi seperti itu. Bentar saya
Yang
tunjukkan.
ingin saya tanyakan mungkin begini, apakah berdasarkan riset yang di lokasi tempat Anda, yaitu di Malang ini, dari hasil temuannya, apakah itu misalnya tidak membawa apa ya? Kalau di sini tadi yang dikemukakan itu berarti kan mengikut sertakan masyarakat pada grassroots ya, lapisan bawah untuk ikut serta. Nah, yang ingin saya tanyakan karena ini menarik sekali gitu, apakah ternyata itu tidak menimbulkan justru menjadi momok ya, ketika itu bendera itu dipasang, ini merah, ini hijau, ini apakah justru tidak menjadi momok antara daerah tersebut, kemudian seakan-akan menjadi suatu ketakutan gitu ya, ketakutan gitu begitu melihat bendera merah, lalu justru apakah tidak menimbulkan rasa takut sendiri gitu. Kalau dari hasil penelitiannya kira-kira seperti apa?
Ya, jadi seperti ini. Kalau dari penelitian kami itu justru yang menjadi penting ya untuk catatan, bagaimana pada akhirnya ini menciptakan kedisiplinan baru di masyarakat. Ketika tahu di dalam lingkungan mereka zonanya ada, ternyata di gang dia hidup, dia tinggal, ternyata di gangnya ternyata tiba-tiba sama RT-nya dipasang bendera merah, artinya mereka tahu bahwa lingkungan mereka dalam situasi bahaya. Akhirnya yang dilakukan adalah mereka mulai kembali mengaktifkan disiplin diri mereka terhadap kesehatan itu sendiri yang pertama, dan yang kemudian di sana pada akhirnya juga ada mekanisme-mekanisme yang sangat khas seperti penanganan itu tadi yang pada akhirnya dilakukan oleh posko ini tadi. Oke, kalau merah artinya mereka harus apa? Misalnya kalau merah di sini yaitu harus mulai menutup gang mereka, akses terhadap gang mereka, dan kegiatan benar-benar dibatasi, seluruh taman, kegiatan ruang-ruang publik itu ditutup sementara karena tahu bahwa ini merah. Dan larinya harus seperti apa, trackingnya harus jelas di gang itu saja. Di gang yang merah itu trackingnya harus jelas. Kemudian memperkuat hal-hal yang lainnya seperti memastikan karena ini mobilitasnya dibatasi, akhirnya setiap posko ini memastikan bagaimana kebutuhan dasar orang-orang di lingkungan yang merah tadi. Jadi seperti itu. Jadi inilah yang sangat, memang bagi saya ini sangat menarik karena tidak perlu, jadi kami menemukan bahwa masyarakat itu mempunyai mekanisme pengorganisasiannya sendiri tanpa harus pemerintah ataupun kepolisian atau tentara yang keliling sambil bawa untuk menakut-nakuti, nggak boleh. Tapi cukup dengan hal penanda-penanda yang itu sangat amat grassroots ya, seperti mungkin bendera adalah hal sederhana, tapi itu menghasilkan sesuatu yang sangat pengorganisasian yang sangat amat baik. Jadi inilah mungkin yang temuan menarik dalam penelitian kita memang. Jadi mungkin seperti itu.
Okay, thank you, Miss Nia, for your feedback. I think time is up, Mr. Hisham, and I would like to invite Miss Valenia, to share her video. Yes, time is yours. Is there any problem, Miss Nia? Hello? Hello? Okay. Little problem. Okay. Oh, maybe you need more time to fix it.
Selamat siang panitia dan para peserta seminar internasional. Izinkanlah kami menyampaikan artikel yang berjudul Intersectionality Regulation for Handling Crisis of Women Trafficking During the Pandemic. Artikel ini berangkat dari kenyataan bahwa hingga saat ini masalah perdagangan perempuan masih menjadi salah satu masalah internasional, bahkan nasional yang sangat memprihatinkan. Karena itu, masalah ini harus segera dicari penyelesaiannya. Salah satu instrumen penyelesaian yang terpenting adalah dengan membentuk regulasi-regulasi, khususnya di berbagai negara yang menjadi jalur perdagangan tersebut. Namun sejauh mana pembentukan regulasi-regulasi tersebut dilakukan, itulah yang akan dipaparkan oleh penulis kami lainnya, yaitu Gina Nabila Effendi. Sebagai pengantar, saya rasa cukup sekian dan terima kasih.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I want to presentation about my research with the title Intersectionality Regulation for Handling Crisis of Women Trafficking During the Pandemic in International Conference 2021 with the author Sayuti, Gina Nabila Effendi, and Zuhri Triansa. Okay, the first, why take this research? Based on the report Interagency Coordination Against Trafficking victim have a 49% female and 23% girl. And with the report International Organization for Migration have a victim case 19.3% female and 23.6% girl. And in the pandemic COVID, women trafficking or case women trafficking will be increased and have a big problem to handling women trafficking in the pandemic COVID because problem in the identification, eradication, and prevention of trafficking in women. And COVID-19 in the ASEAN, especially for the case women trafficking, have a legal basis for law with the CEDAW or Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and CEDAW is International Agreement on Women's Rights. But with the Research CEDAW Working Group Initiative, CEDAW have a problem for the implementation regulation, especially one, legal rules are not appropriate. Two, implementation is not optimal, theoretical or practical. Research make sure goals and gap in this research, and the goals from the case woman trafficking, case of woman trafficking must have legal regulation or ideal rules from the law, and then gap for the case woman trafficking in the ASEAN. Woman trafficking need analysis, discrimination, and identification form of discrimination against women. So in this research, make sure concept intersectionality for the handling case woman trafficking in the ASEAN. Research focus and objective in the research to explain the form of handling the regulation crisis of the woman trafficking, and especially the crisis of trafficking in women with intersectionality legal regulation. And this study focus on the role of intersectionality in handling the crisis of trafficking in women. And then research method or data collection. This study used a descriptive qualitative method and data such as online news, content with timeline series, data, journalism, and various documents related to research. And this article or this research discuss intersectionality regulation for handling crisis of women trafficking during the pandemic. And data analysis use the NVIFO 12 plus application data processing application and using cross-step analysis. And then basic theory in this research of the woman trafficking and the regulation from the woman for the woman trafficking, and a new regulation for the handling the woman trafficking have a pro and contra regulation of the woman trafficking. So the first theory contra of the new regulation, one, explain the CEDAW Convention as a legal material that can be the basic for regulation and does not need new regulation. And research Rahminita, which state that the concept of legal regulation of CEDAW is sufficient to be a solution to case of trafficking in women and children, where CEDAW is considered to have help in the struggle for equality which is expected. And research from Mullin, CEDAW legal regulation that are used as the basis for eliminating a form of discrimination against women are included in international convention that show the equality of women and men in obtain their right. And then theory pro for the new regulation. One, research Sari, so that the existing law and regulation have not been able to minimize the case of trafficking in women even the case is not detected. Two, relate legal products from the research Sumirat also explain that improvement in legal production and legal infrastructure are needed, especially in the application of law enforcement, interference in the judicial process, and overlapping legal rules that result in legal crisis in a country. And the last research Ridana Swastika, the existing regulation have not been maximally implemented, where the CEDAW regulation make rules that are formed only based on the woman human right, but have not been able to synergy with practice. Result and discussion with the research. One, sector of human trafficking and big data woman trafficking based on the concept intersectionality, based on the cross-step query rate, sector to woman trafficking have a high score from the social environment with the 33.33%, and the second, the sector woman trafficking in the economic with the 50%, and the last with the sector culture in the case of woman trafficking with the 16.67%. And then with the concept of intersectionality, author make a survey main target of woman trafficking with the cross-step query rate, and then apply target for the woman trafficking have two target woman trafficking. The first, sexual exploitation, and the second, forced labor. And sexual exploitation have a score higher than forced labor. Sexual exploitation have the 63.64%, and forced labor have a 36.36%. Okay, the second, international and ASEAN regulation of trafficking in women. Based on the international law, there are at least several conventions that are carried out to determine the form of human exploitation that is sent as an act of human trafficking. So, in regulation have four regulation: one, convention of forced prostitution; two, convention of non-sexual forced labor; three, recognition of human organ trafficking; and four, not recognizing internal or domestic trade.
Sorry,
then
Miss
with the
Valinia, could you
international
please
regulation
skip
for the
some of
trafficking
your
in the
your
woman.
video
So in
and
ASEAN, we
jump
have
to the
a
conclusion?
or convention on the
We
elimination
run
of
out of
all
time.
form of discrimination against
Sorry.
women, with the regulation 60% and implementation for the regulation have a 40%. So based on the result of the cross-step query rate, it showed that the form of international law
Miss
enforcement
Valinia,
or policy that is set as an international convention relate to women is still not able to
Recording,
elimination human
yeah,
trafficking
recording.
as seen from the present take result that
okay. Miss Valinia, could you please jump to the conclusion so the other presenter can ask you a question or suggestion or comment for you? Okay. Or maybe there is already a question to ask to Miss Valinia. Okay. Please. Any question? Because I have no question to, it's hard for me to follow your presentation, Miss Valinia. I'm weak on mathematics, on statistics, and kind of it. So yes, I really can't understand your presentation. I'm so sorry. Maybe Miss Valinia can, I don't know, explain directly instead of play your video regarding your research. Miss Valinia, you still 3 minutes to go. Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, okay. Miss Valinia said that they have problem related technical problem. Yes, signal is very weak in their area. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, I think it's the end of presentation on Miss Valinia. You can give a question and the comment. Maybe can. We are moving to the last presenter, Miss Rudy, Mr. Rudy. Okay, could you please
Yes.
share your PowerPoint, please? Time is yours. Thank you.
Bentar. Nah. Selamat sore. Terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Pada hari ini saya akan mempresentasikan sebuah artikel yang berjudul Duty versus Humanity Police Officers Point of View in Implementing Policies as Coronavirus Disease COVID-19 Task Force. Nah, saya akan menggunakan bahasa Indonesia karena bahasa Inggris saya tidak begitu bagus.
It's fine, monggo.
Jadi saya ke pendahuluan. COVID saat ini itu sedang dialami oleh seluruh masyarakat global, terutama Indonesia, dan dampaknya itu sangat signifikan. Pada tanggal 12 Maret 2020, WHO menyatakan bahwa virus ini merupakan sebuah pandemik. Kemudian pemerintah Indonesia dalam hal ini juga membentuk sebuah satuan tugas atau yang dikenal dengan namanya gugus COVID. Nah, salah satu bagian dari gugus COVID itu sendiri ada Kepolisian Republik Indonesia. Nah, Kepolisian Republik Indonesia itu memiliki berbagai fungsi yang selaras dengan instruksi Presiden maupun tugas utama dari kepolisian itu sendiri. Namun, sayangnya dalam melakukan tugasnya terdapat berbagai macam stigma negatif yang menyatakan bahwa anggota Polri itu dalam melakukan tugas mengesampingkan sisi kemanusiaan. Seperti contohnya hal yang terjadi di Surabaya, salah satunya ketika polisi mencoba membubarkan kegiatan di pasar, para anggota Polri dianggap tidak manusiawi dan lain sebagainya. Nah, artikel ini bertujuan untuk memberikan pandangan dan gambaran tentang bagaimana ketegasan anggota Polri dalam menjalankan tugas. Metodenya, saya menggunakan metode analisa wacana, yaitu mengumpulkan berbagai macam wacana untuk memberikan penjelasan bagaimana sih tugas Polri itu sebenarnya sebagai bagian dari satuan gugus penanganan COVID-19, di mana penulis berupaya untuk memberikan gambaran agar masyarakat mengetahui bahwa yang dilakukan oleh satuan Polri itu sama sekali tidak mengesampingkan sisi kemanusiaan. Gambarannya tentang tugas anggota Polri yang diharapkan mampu menghilangkan stigma negatif yang timbul. Nah, upaya yang disampaikan oleh pemerintah dalam mencegah rantai penyebaran COVID yaitu melalui social distancing atau PSBB. Nah, tugas polisi itu sendiri meliputi 4 poin, yaitu pengawasan penerapan protokol kesehatan, patroli pengawasan prokes, dan edukasi pentingnya prokes, serta upaya penegasan tindakan hukum bagi pelanggar prokes. Keempat poin tersebut merupakan sebuah keselarasan dari fungsi utama kepolisian, yaitu memelihara keamanan, ketertiban, penegakan hukum, perlindungan, pengayoman, dan pelayanan kepada masyarakat. Polri sendiri dalam melakukan tugasnya itu menerapkan asas Salus Populi Supreme Lex Esto, atau keselamatan rakyat merupakan hukum tertinggi, yang mana asas tersebut merupakan prinsip utama kepolisian dalam menjalankan tugas dan wewenangnya. Munculnya stigma negatif itu tentu saja dipengaruhi oleh minimnya kesadaran masyarakat akan dampak dari virus COVID-19 itu sendiri. Tindakan penertiban oleh anggota Polri dianggap sebagian masyarakat merupakan sebuah tindakan yang mengesampingkan sisi kemanusiaan. Namun pada dasarnya tindakan anggota Polri merupakan sebuah bentuk diskresi yang juga merupakan wewenang anggota kepolisian yang tertuang dalam Undang-Undang Nomor 2 Tahun 2002 tentang Kepolisian Negara Republik Indonesia, di mana wewenang tersebut dilandaskan pada 4 asas, yaitu asas masalah, keperluan, tujuan, dan asas keseimbangan. Jadi saya kembali ke contoh pasar yang dilakukan penertiban itu, tentu saja anggota Polri sudah melakukan berbagai macam pertimbangan. Karena apabila tidak dilakukan penertiban, maka kasus penularan akan semakin meningkat. Kesimpulannya adalah ketegasan anggota Polri bukan merupakan tindakan yang mengesampingkan kemanusiaan, namun justru mengutamakan keselamatan bersama, khususnya seluruh rakyat Indonesia. Minimnya kesadaran masyarakat tentang bahaya virus COVID-19 serta pentingnya pelaksanaan protokol kesehatan justru menjadi kendala bagi anggota Polri dalam melaksanakan kewajiban sebagai bagian dari satuan tugas penanganan COVID-19. Tindakan tegas yang dilakukan anggota Polri sudah melalui standar prosedur yang termuat dalam undang-undang maupun asas-asas atau wewenang kepolisian yang tertuang dalam peraturan Kepolisian Republik Indonesia, di mana bertujuan untuk keselamatan bersama dan menanggulangi pandemik yang sampai saat ini masih belum bisa ditemukan obatnya. Mungkin itu sekian dari saya.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rudy.
Yeah.
I think very interesting research. I think it's very critic idea with no when maybe it's just surprising me, because I think very it's critics, because we talk about the police institution. It's hard for us to get information, I think, from this institution. I don't know, just wondering how can you get information from the policeman, or maybe from this institution?
Because I have several friends who work in the police.
Okay, that's why.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Okay, I see. Okay, I'm so sorry. Maybe this is the end of our panel session. I have
Yes.
notification just
Thank
now.
you very much.
Yes. We have to go back to the main room immediately for the symposium, I think. Thank you very much for your contribution and your presentation. Good luck. Wish you all the best and see you on other online events. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sehat,
Waalaikumsalam
stay healthy.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Miss
Thank
Ani.
you for you all.